Okay, so this is going to be a short video tutorial, and this is already the authors of the book, right? He already shows this the code. Although I use somewhat different variable name. I mean, it's almost the same, but some of the variable names I use my own variable name. So this video tutorial is almost identical, right? It's like 99% identical, maybe 90% identical to the video tutorial in your textbook. So basically, I read this data file, right? The chapter 4 for the training, and then for the scoring, scoring, I read this data, chapter 8 data scoring the CSV files, right? And then store the data frame into this variable name, chapter 8 score, right? Okay. So let's just first run this couple of lines of code, right? Let's just run. Okay. And oops, I think so. When you run this, okay, so then load this. Sometimes when you run this install.package mess, they will ask you to restart R sessions. Then yes, just click yes, and then you can restart. And so pretty much using this subset, right? Apply this subset to the home size, because the home size in the training data, in the scoring data set, some of them is relatively large, right? So just trim out, a couple of rows, right? Okay, so that's a subsets, and then they're using LM functions, right? LM functions. So this is a formula, right? So this is a formula. Up to this is a formula, right? So basically, the y is like the dependent variable is heating oil used, and insulating rating, outdoor temp, num, occupants, and home age and home size are independent variable. Actually, they are predictors, right? So this is like the main. There are a couple of things that I like to show you from the perspective, and from the programmer's perspective. Okay, so the main idea of this lecture note is going to be what, programmers, right? The perspective, right? So that's something that I want to show you. Now let's look at the LM. Okay, so now just run this code LM, right? And then the result will be saved in this heat mod variable. And then let's just, so I want to, sometimes it's very, sometimes I think it's, for the learning purpose, right? Also to improve your R programming skill, right? Find out the data type, right? Find out the data type returned by each functions, like by functions, for example, in this case LM, right? It's very useful. Okay, so and okay, so for example, right? Let's look at this code. This code, they eliminate what num occupants, because num occupants is not really statistically is not a significant the variable, right? So they eliminate num occupants, and so they basically this is the final the functions, right? LM, right? Okay, so now let's look at the heat mod, and then so you know what? Let's just run this first. Okay, so now let's look at the heat mod. So this is the what? This is the result, right? Returned by this LM function, right? So basically, the important things that you have to look at, right, is the coefficients, like intercept and the coefficient for the insulation ratings and etc., right? But what is a class? what is a class of hit mod? So that's something I want you to find out. Basically, this class is LM. Okay, so this is a LM type, right? And then so when you look at when you apply the summary, right, to a variable of type, or actually when you apply the summary, right, function to an object of type LM, right? Let's see what you can see, right? So it really shows all this important, right? It really shows all this important result, right? Okay, so that's something I want you to know. Like I want you to be aware that this hit mod is what returned by LM is something of type what LM. Okay, and then you can apply the summary functions to something of type LM. Okay, like okay, so you can apply the summary, right? Now, so there's another important function is predict. You predict, for the input, right? You provide, for the first argument, you provide something of type LM, right? And then you provide a data set. Okay, so when you look at the chapter 8 score, which is this one, right? I want you to look at the chapter 8 scores, right? It only has these independent variables, right? There's no dependent variable. So that's something that I want you to be aware of, right? It only has this data set. It has what? Only independent variables. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because predict will, basically predict the values for y, which is a dependent variable, and it's obvious that chapter 8 score, this data set, should not have a y variable, right? I mean dependent variable. Okay, and the hit mod once again is what? Is something of type LM, right? So basically, the idea is that the result of the hit mod is the first argument of the predict, right? And then chapter 8, you get the data from here, right? And you know that this does not have no dependent variable, right? This data set. And the hit mod is what? Is a type of LM, right? And then the predict is a functions, and it returned a result and store into this variable at hit predict. So then, what is this hit predict? What is a type? Okay, that's something I want you to know. Okay, so let's just run this. So predict, let's just run, right? And then hit predict. And as you can see, right, hit predict is nothing but a vector or the series, right? It's not a data frame, it's a vector, as you can see, right? So the one is like a first result. So this is like an array, right? So the first value, right, is 199, and the next value is 212, right, as you can see. And the third value is what? 240. So it's basically a vector of the numerical values. So let's just verify that. So just apply the class to the hit predict. If you run this, the class, let's just run this. And it's a numeric, right? It means what is a vector or the series of something of like a type a numeric, right? So it's a vector of the numerical values basically. Okay, so that's something I want you to know, right? I want you to remember. So by the way, as I really emphasize, this is what this tutorial, is. I just make this tutorial, so that you can look at these values, right? And then I want you to know that it's the class or the type of each variable returned by the functions such as LM and predict, right? So now let's take a look at this. Now let's look at this so the predict, right? Predict, it returns, right, something of type what? Something of type vector, right? The vector of the numeric, right? Numerical values actually. Then the after this, right? So this code is what? This code is like data frame. You so this is what the hit predict, right? Which is from here, right? And if you look at this data frame, and then the chapter 8 score, right? Chapter 8 score is a data frame actually. So you remember when you read a file, and the returned value is a data frame. So you know that this is what? This is a data frame, right? So this is the data frame already. So type of this variable is data frame, and hit predict is what? Is a vector, right? It's a vector of the numerical values. Okay, so when you apply the data frame functions, and this vector, right, is going to be added as a column, right, as a new column to this data frame, chapter 8 score. Okay, so that's what the data frame does, this function data frame. So let's just run, right? Run this file. So just run, and as you see, the hit output. So when you look at this, the result, right? You are able to see, right? You are able to see the hit predict is newly added, right, as a new column to this chapter 8 score, right? And then so this whole thing becomes a data frame, and then the result will be stored as a hit output. So basically this is what? This is a what? Hit output, right? This is a hit output. Right? So this is a hit output, right? Okay? So the class of the hit output is obviously this data frame, right? Because this makes add these vectors to this chapter 8 data frame, and then so it'll make this whole thing as a data frame. So obviously the hit output should be a data frame, right? It's of something of type data frame. So let's just run this to verify, right? And let's just run, and you know that class is obviously this data frame. Of course this is a data frame, right? Okay. And then once you have a data frame, okay, so once you have a data frame, so this is data frame, right? You can select individual column using this $sign. So we have a hit predict column, right? So basically calculate the sum of all the values in the hit predict column, right? So basically this is a hit predict column. And then also the next line is find the average, right? Average value of this column. Okay, good. So basically I want you to, whenever you analyze this R code, right? Sometimes knowing this class, right? It's kind of important, and definitely will improve, right? Making habit of finding the class for each variable, right? It's definitely this kind of habit will definitely improve your R coding skills. Okay. Okay. So thank you.